AMA. The Mesh Art Fair is going to be taking place during Metaverse Art Week in Decentraland. That's going to be, I think it's the third week of July. And it's going to be the centerpiece event. There's going to be other things happening in Decentraland. Here we go. The 19th through the 23rd of July is Metaverse Art Week. So that's the third week of July. And yeah, I'm just here to answer questions, to provide information to the artists. Wanted to create a European-friendly time zone. I have 2 Fafo sessions each week, one on Tuesday, one on Friday, and I'm moving the times around just to make sure that there are times that are friendly and available to artists from all over the world, because we have artists all over the world in this event. I'm looking for different countries we've got. So a majority of them are from the United States. We also have quite a few from Germany, from Australia, from the Netherlands, and then we have at least one artist from Brazil, France, India, Iran, Italy, Japan, Russia, Singapore, Thailand, Ukraine. So I'll be putting up times for AMAs for the next week or next couple of weeks to make sure that we have times friendly for those time zones. So I just wanted to today I'm gonna just take a look at the cube. I know the artists have already looked at this. This is the info for the artists. But I just wanted to go over this specifically. I know that people have different exceptionalities, different ways that they take in information. I often don't read the instructions, much to my wife's chagrin. My wife is an attorney, so she definitely reads the directions. But there's some things that I catch and some things that she misses, and vice versa. So it's a good balance, I guess, what I was looking for. So let's get into this, and I'm gonna call up Blender. First thing I'm gonna do is just open up the cube file. We'll come back to the instructions, to the general instructions. So here's Blender version 3.5.1. You can see some of my previous files that I've been working on. And there we go. File, open. So that's an emote that I'm working on for Pride Week, for the Pride Festival. Still not finished. Okay, so I want to go up a level, I think. I recently got a new computer, so I am trying to remember where I created my folders. Maybe it's in 3D. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So here it is. Just a few minutes ago, I downloaded the cube blend file. And here it is. So I'm sure you're familiar with some sort of 3D modeling package. Blender is open source, it's freely available, very powerful tool, also a very complex tool. But this is how you get into the cube through these chevrons. The way you see we're looking at it here, it's a wireframe, and this is just so people go into the cube and don't fall off. But all that's visible is the actual chevrons, and you just sort of walk up them and into the cube. But you can look at this a couple of different ways. So you start here on the left. I'm up in the upper right hand corner up here. Wireframe, just basic viewport shading, and then here you've got textures, and then this last one is with lighting and everything. I don't have lights or camera in the scene. It doesn't appear, based on my scene collection or my content manager, my CMS over here in the upper right hand corner. Programs like After Effects or Photoshop will have, it's just, they all often look like this, where you'll have a tool set over here on the right hand side, and then you'll have different layers. But this is essentially considered your content management system or solution, however you want to refer to that. But here, yeah, with the render, it's not going to look like it would in World, in Decentraland, because, well, I don't have a camera set up, I don't have any lights added, I can see that. Here you can see just how it's separated out. Here are the chevrons. And here is the cube. It's got this this bluish color. That's a display option. If I come in, this is helping me visualize which direction the normals are facing, without getting too deep into it. Normals just tell the computer what side of a simulated object to render. It doesn't make sense to dedicate computer resources to rendering a cube on the inside if you're only going to see it from the outside. So this is the color that we want, so that the computer can see it, so that when we're in World, we can see it. So if I zoom in, now I'm inside the cube. I don't know if you saw that change. It's very subtle, but here I can see the inside corner. Get my annotation line. Here's the edge, right here and here. So that's like the inside of the cube. So I'll go ahead and erase this. And if I zoom back out, oh, there's a little bit of line there. So now I'm on the outside of the cube. You may see this little dot. This right here is the object's center. Okay. And every object, every item that is going to be displayed in the scene has an object center, so the computer knows where it is. And that's just determined with Cartesian coordinates, X, Y, and Z. You can see that gizmo up here, right? So I can either, I'm using a 3-button mouse, so I use my middle mouse button, place it here in my user perspective view, press down the middle mouse button, and I orbit around. Or I can come up here and with my left mouse button, I can click on the gizmo, this little circle with the X, Y, and Z, and orbit around. So if you don't have a 3-button mouse, you can still do the things that you need to do. It's just a little harder to achieve that. Okay, so hello Fiddle, good morning. Could do some things to help us with visualization. These are my viewport overlays. So this whole window right here is my viewport. I can turn these things off and on. So the floor just gives me a reference plane. I actually like leaving this on because each one of these units, could be like a meter or a centimeter, depending on how you set that up. Text info over here in the upper left-hand corner, statistics. This is actually going to be very friendly, helpful to the artists because if I tab back to the mesh information, design specs. So if we go to that, and I have that up here in the upper right hand corner of the video that I'm streaming, 10,000 tries or triangles. I wanted to put it in descending order, so I reformatted it. 300 bodies. That just means objects, right? But to this first one, the triangles, the 10,000 triangles. Here we can see that we already have 122 triangles. So a common criticism that I hear from people is, why is Decentraland so low poly when other metaverse worlds are, they have high triangle counts and texture limitations and whatnot. Decentraland is a contiguous world. Genesis City that you would see on the map, all of the plots are right next to each other physically, so you can walk from one to the next. So without getting too deep into the weeds with this one, when you have multiple scenes right next to each other, it's like if you were to have a 2D web analogy, you're going to go to a website, and then you're thinking about, you're going to go to Google, you're thinking about going to, I don't know, maybe the New York Times, the Guardian, and then you're going to go to, I don't know, eBaum's World or whatever, or YouTube, that it would load all of those, because you could at any one moment go from one to the next, sort of wander from one to the next. So it loads all of those because they're geographically located next to one another. So that's one of the reasons that I've been told about putting limitations on a Decentraland scene. Then you also have your characters, your avatars. So that's a virtual representation of who you are in world, and you have to have where they're located, what they're doing, what they're saying, all of those things, and it's an exponential level of complexity that increases. So it's an attempt to manage that, and it's easy to turn a no into a yes. It's easier to do that than it is to turn a yes into a no. So if you say yes, you can have hundreds of thousands of triangles or millions of triangles, and then you're like, oh, by the way, no, we need to dial that back. It's easier if you start small and then add complexity instead of going the other way. So okay, I did want to get back to talking about the normals. If I turn this off where it says face orientation, you can see that blue color goes away. And that just, the blue is what you want to see, because that's what the computer will see and render out the face. What if I turn that off? It looks very normal. And this cube will render white in world, because there will be a camera there that your avatar looks through, and there will be lights there, which is just a global all-world lighting system, and that changes with the time of day. So something to consider. We can get to that later. Just check and make sure. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a different screen in Discord. Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. Okay. I am going to turn this back on, the face orientation. And I'll call up an example, just a little sample. So to add an object in Blender, it's keeping my mouse here in the viewport. It could be in any viewport. I'm going to go back from my annotation tool to my cursor, my selection box. That's my pointer here. If I come here, I just wanted to put my cursor to world origin, which it already is. It's right there. It's this circle right here. Okay. Whenever I create an object in Blender, it gets placed at the world origin. To add an object, just think the letter A for add. So I hold down the Shift key and then the A key to add. I'm going to add a mesh, because that's the name of the show. I'm going to add a mesh. I'm going to add a mesh sphere, and it's going to be a UV sphere. Okay, so there's my mesh. And after adding it, it calls up this dialog box. And I'm actually going to zoom in, and I can change this on the fly. So what I'm doing is I'm left clicking on these text boxes. So there's segments. If I dial this down, you can see this will be easier. If I go down, so there's 5, 4, 3. 3 is as far down as you can go. So yeah, let's dial this down as far as we can. 3 by 3. And the radius is 1 m or 1 meter. But yeah, I can increase that. So we'll start with 16. And 16, do 16 this way too. And if I'm having a hard time getting it dialed in with the slider, I can just left click and type something in. But I don't want 20, I want 16. And let's say I want something that's going to fit inside my 12 meter by 12 meter cube. So this is my radius. I don't want something that has a 12 meter radius, because then it'll have a 24 meter diameter. And then it will be bigger than my cube. So I want to make sure that it will fit inside the cube. So let's just be safe and say we want it to be an overall 10-meter diameter. So that's a 5-meter radius. Okay. I'm not going to go through any of this other stuff. It's not super important. But now we were super close to the cube. We took a 1-meter cube and made it a 5-meter radius cube. And now the color isn't blue anymore, it's red. But if we zoom out, we see that, oh, now it's blue. And if you look at the back of the chevrons here, you can see that those are red. If we look at over here, it's blue. So I'm just gonna play teacher here for a minute. Why do you think the color is different? It's blue on this side and it's red on this side. What do you think that color difference could indicate? If we zoom in, we see the inside of the sphere is red. Here is the object center. It's around that circular dotted line, and that's the global origin. That's the cursor at the global origin. Yeah, that's the center of our sphere at the world origin. So everything in a virtual space is like inside of a container. It's inside a world. So you define parameters. You say, well, this is the center of that world, and then everything else is positioned in relationship to that world center. It's all very exact and mathematical. So here's my object, and if I move it, so to move things in Blender, you hit the G key to grab, and you see that the color changes on that. Just put it back there, but that just means I have it selected. I want to move it, let's say, in the y-axis, so I'm going to then, I'm not touching my mouse, I'm not moving anything, but I'm going to hit the Y key, and now it's locked into the y-axis. Okay. So if I orbit around, you'll be able to see this a little easier. So G to grab it, Y for the y-axis. And when I move my mouse, it doesn't matter if I move my mouse up and down, left and right. It's only going to translate along that y-axis. So I can get very precise. I can eyeball it. And as soon as I have it where I want it to be, then I left-click my mouse. Notice over here in the upper right-hand corner where we have the transforms, X, Y, and Z for location. Select that again. That's the only thing that changed. X and Z have remained at 0. But if I want to be very precise, I can just enter in, a 12 there, or, -5 or whatever. Okay. So this isn't actually where we want it to go. I want it to be back the global origin. So I'm going to just do Control Z to undo all those things. And I want to raise it up to put it inside of our cube. So that means I need to, if I look at my gizmo here, to go up, right? I want to go up this way. That's Z. That's going to be a positive in Z. Still have our sphere selected. I'm going to grab it with my G key. Let's see that it's been selected. I'm going to now press my Z key, and now when I move my mouse, it moves up in Z. So I'm going to left click to confirm my movement there. I'm going to frame that up. I'm just going to orbit around. Now, looking at it like this in the user perspective view is somewhat helpful, but perhaps you want to look at it, it's what's called an orthographic view. There are some hotkeys. I'm just going to show you the different views. I'm not going to go through and explain everything all at once. But we can change to a top view. It's what's called an orthographic view, and that just means that there is no perspective. So if I have a coffee cup that's like 1 centimeter away from the camera, or 100 meters from the camera, the coffee cup is going to stay the same size. There's no depth. There's no 3 dimensions. You just, whatever view you're looking at, top, front, side, it's only going to have the 2 axes. It's not going to take into account depth. But as soon as we go into a perspective or into a camera view, then it does simulate that perspective. So that's the difference. The nice part about having the orthographic views, like this is our front orthographic view, is that we can position things very precisely. So I've just framed up my sphere. I'm going to grab the sphere with my G key, and I want to move this over to the left. I can tell by looking at my XYZ gizmo, excuse me, up in the upper right hand corner of my front orthographic view here, that it's the X axis. So I'm going to press the X key. So now it's locked into moving only in the X axis. So I can see here from my front view, my front orthographic, that my sphere is inside the cube. If I switch over to side view, my right view, my sphere is still kind of sticking out from the side. And I can tell by my gizmo that that's the Y axis, so I want to move it in Y. So I'm going to grab my sphere again, the G key. Hood. I don't know what that was about. So we're going to grab it again, and then I'm going to press the Y for isolating it in the Y axis. I'm just going to move it over again. Okay, so yeah, I'm just eyeballing it, but doing so in my orthographic views makes that a little easier. And once again, I can enter numerical values and have it be very, very precise using my transforms. Is another way to do that. I also would like to point out down here are the dimensions. So if perhaps I got something wrong and I wanted to correct that, I can make it a very specific size. So let's say I kind of messed up the radius and then diameter, and I'm not good at maths. I can just come in here and say, I want this to be not 10 meters tall and 10 meters wide and 10 meters deep. I want it to be 11. I can just type in 11, and then it will scale it to that those dimensions. Okay, I'm gonna hide this window. To do that, you can just grab, see when the cursor moves over something, and I can manipulate it, modify it, the cursor changes. And I can just take this and drag it over here all the way to the right. If I want it to come back, I can just, this tiny little triangle, oh, there it is, comes back, okay? There's menus everywhere, right? I'm not gonna get too into this, but if you ever lose your way, that's how you get this back. Is you click on this little triangle here, and the one you want to look at to see the numerical values for location, rotation, scale, and dimensions is the item, right? There's all this other stuff you're not even going to have this other one. This is a plugin that I put in, but you just click on item, and you can hide this and reveal it. You can also take it and just drag it and get it out of the way. Okay. So let's move in again, shall we? Zooming in. Now we're inside the sphere. You can see here is my object center. There we go. And again, this blue color means that this is what the camera sees. If we zoom in far enough, we're now inside the sphere. We're not going to see this. If we're inside a sphere and we're looking at it and it's red, now granted that's only going to be when we have the face orientation turned on. The computer won't render this out. This will be invisible to the viewer if you're inside a sphere and all of the visible faces are pointing the other direction, are pointing outside. It's actually kind of handy because perhaps you want to control what the audience sees and what the audience doesn't see. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to go to this resource because there are examples. And actually, there's a cube that it looks white from the outside, but on the inside, the walls are transparent. So I'm just looking for there we go. This is what I was looking for. 29 minus 39. So I'm going to come into Decentraland. I already have this up and running. I need to sign into my wallet. Okay. So I think this is going to take me to, the last place I was in Decentraland, which was Dollhouse. There was a party last night called Vertex. But I don't want to be here. I want to be at Edifice. And come back. Nope, not there. Not there. 2, negative 39. So I'm just going to type that in here. 2, negative 39. So anytime you type something like this in the chat, it sees it and recognizes it as coordinates, and I can just click on it, and this will take me to Edifice. So I'm coming here because if you look off in the distance, you can see Mesh Preview. There's the sign right there. Okay, let's go check it out. think many of you have already been here, have seen the examples. There are the chevrons. Okay. So, which is the one that I wanted? Sorry, I'm just going to peek in the cube to see which one it is that I want. I think it's this one over here. Yes, this is the one. Okay. I'm going to tab back and forth between the Decentraland view and Blender because I just want to show ability to contrast and compare. So you can see the chevrons here. Don't see the side walls. Those are actually colliders. So I can't walk through it this way. Can't walk through it because it's a bit of code that we've created to say, hey, we want to constrain the characters to these parameters, to these dimensions, okay? And that is, you can see that from these little walls here, these little railings, so to speak, right? Okay. So we've got a floor here, or ramp, that has a collider and those on the side. So when we begin walking up the ramp, we don't fall off. Also, it's fairly steep, right? I would call that about a 60-degree angle. And in order for a character in Decentraland to be able to just walk up an incline, it has to be 30 degrees or less. So let's just get my annotation tool out. So if this is the floor, and this is where we're going, this is about a 60-degree angle. It needs to be shallower than that to just be able to walk up. So it's got to be about half that, right? So about this right here, about 30 degrees. So anything that's greater than that, you got to climb, you have to jump. And to jump into Decentraland, that's the space bar. So that's what I've been doing to get up in here. So we can see, I know that this is KJ Walker's low poly model is her studio. This is her space. And just looking at it from the outside, you know, it's the white cube. If we jump inside, and you get the little, oh nice, welcome to Cat Life, explore and interact with the paw buttons. So anytime you jump, you get the little cloud of dust down below you. So that's how you know you're doing it right, how you're jumping properly. So I'm just hitting the space bar. Okay. But once we get inside, we can see out. We can't get out, but we can see out. And I love how the cat saunters one side to the next. But this is a really good demonstration of the normals, right? From the outside, it's going to render the outside because those normals are facing out. But we don't have anything like that except for these window frames. that indicate where the windows are. Oh, I didn't want to do that. I'm like, oh, what's this over here? It's the it's the navigation for Edifice, not for KJ's space. Okay. For Cat Life. Can I change? Oh, I can't change to first person view. Oh, this is kind of fun. If I come over to the scratching post, I can scratch bits of the wall. Go to the litter box. Sorry, I'm just having fun playing around. Cancel. Why can't I? Yeah. Okay. Anyway. I haven't spent a whole lot of time in KJ's build. I've been here a couple of times, but it's usually been on tours and I've been showing people stuff, so I haven't had the opportunity to play. So hope you'll forgive me. No entry. What is? Oh, there's a little fish. As you can see, no dogs are allowed. All right, so back to Blender. Let's erase this. Okay. So if we go inside of this cube, see the sphere. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so that you can see, we can see inside the cube and we can see the outside of the sphere. So I'm going to select the sphere so it's a little bit easier to see, and I'm going to use another hotkey. So instead of G to grab, I want to press the S key, and that's to scale. And I'm just going to make it smaller. So now when I move my viewport around, my user perspective around, I can see the inside of, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. I can see the inside of the cube and the outside of the sphere. Let's frame the sphere up a little bit. There's the entrance. That's where we came in. So if I tab back to KJ's place, and let's try to get to a similar location. Right. So yeah, we're right about here, right? Or maybe up a little farther inside the cube. Right, a high up looking down perspective, looking down to the entrance. Something like that, right? Maybe over here. So that'll give you a sense of like what it looks like in Blender and what it looks like in World. I can also take this cube and I can drop it into a scene and then look at it using well, I could use Builder, or I could use SDK. There's also a new tool out called DCL Edit, and that's another way to preview the scene. Which is it's handy to be able to have that, so that we can make some make some judgments, because how we think it's going to look and how it actually looks once it's in the environment can be quite different. So being able to compare that with your original vision is somewhat important. So we're going to go through that here, so that you can see what that looks like. All right, so I'm going to zoom out. And let's just review. Right now I've got 602 triangles. That's including my sphere. Excuse me. Some other things that you'll want to add are materials. Over here in my CMS, my content management system, I've got the different components, right, of items in my scene. The little sphere with the checkered pattern on it is the material, and then the actual square with the checkered, that's the actual texture that goes on it. Material, if you think of it this way, my coffee mug is made of, it's ceramic, right? So it's going to be a clay material, but the texture is the glaze that's put on my ceramic mug. Or this is metal. That's the material. So it has luster. It has a specularity. It's, so you can see highlights on it. Whereas the cork that goes in the top doesn't have much specularity. So there's not a big shiny highlight. It's not lustrous, so it's not like I couldn't see my face in this, but I can in the metal. But the texture is going to be the words, the letters that are on the outside of it. So really quick description of the difference between those things. But you have to define all of those things. You're creating everything in your environment when it's three-dimensional, when it's virtual. So you choose the color. Get kind of a yellow. Okay. Base color, surface color. If you want the surface colors to be the same, you can just click on that swatch down here, eyedropper, and then select that. So if we go back into our box, fairly confident I know what the face orientation is, so I'm going to turn that off, and now I can see the material. I was talking about metallic. If we want to make this look metallic, I'm going to turn that up. If I want it to be shiny metallic, I'm going to turn up the specularity. I'm also going to do something directly to the object itself, and that's just a way that the camera is going to see and render each one of these faces. Right now, each face is one of these rectangles. So the sphere is made up of a bunch of rectangular tiles, so to speak, that are all glued together, that are making the sphere. And each one of these is a constant color. So it looks rather, well, faceted, or you can see the polygonal edges. You can see each of the tiles. But I can right-click on this object and I can tell the camera to shade it smoothly. So it will do, it's basically just a mathematical trick. It will give me a gradient from one of the points on that rectangle to another to help it appear smooth. So if I right-click and I choose Shade Smooth, you can see here that each one of these rectangles, if I go like this, oh, actually let me undo this. I'm gonna trace out one of these faces so you can see the difference. So that's where that rectangle is, and I'm going to draw one down here. Okay. So if I were to take a black piece of mat board and just cut these out and place that over here, you can see that this is all just one solid color. And then if I choose Shade Smooth, now you can see that it's not one solid color, it's sort of a gradient. So like I said, it's a trick, mathematical trick. The edges are still there. If you look at the sides of it, you can see the straight lines. But most of the time, we're not scanning the edge. We're looking at the object. We're maybe flitting our eyes over to the edge just to check out where it is. But we're looking at the main surface of it, so it appears to be smooth. So I'm going to come in here, get my eraser, get rid of those lines. Right? And now I'm going to start increasing these values. Metallic, specular tint. And I'm going to take the roughness down. So roughness is here. This is my little mouse pad, my trackpad. It's a little miniature rug. But this is rough, right? I want this to be rough. I don't want to step on a carpet and have it be smooth like glass, or smooth like my ceramic mug where I can see the highlights. So to create something that looks more like my mug, I want to take the roughness down. And as I reduce that, you can begin to see this is just a little environmental map. You can see trees and sunlight there, and that's just it's a simulation. It's a fake, just so you have something to look at in reference. This isn't going to show up in Decentraland. The actual environment that's in Decentraland will show up here. Come on, kitty. Let's go this way. I'm gonna hop out. So this is what's going to be reflected, is the moon and the clouds and everything will show up as reflective objects in Decentraland. I'm wondering if there's anything in here that is well, I mean, the floor, you can see there's the moon in the floor, and you can see some of the stars in the floor. So I'm going to change some of my settings, into Decentraland, I'm going to see it says Dynamic Skybox, and it's middle of the night. So I'm going to change that to the middle of the day. And I'm looking for the sun. I'm looking for the reflection of the sun, actually. But if you look here, this is a good place to see it. You can see the mountains, and you can see the reflection of the mountains here. So you can see the clouds right here, reflection of the clouds. See the clouds there, moving very slowly. Anyway, so we go back into Blender, and you can see here that this is quote unquote the skybox that that Blender is using. What else did I want to show you? Oh, that's right. I wanted to take this cube. I'm going to take this cube. I'm going to put it into a scene and bring it into Blender. So let's do that now. Okay. So I'm going to come back over to my my CM, my content management system. I'm going to just call this my gold ball. I'm going to label these things. Okay. So here's the object, and then here you can see like the little vertices at each of the points. So that's the actual mesh. You can go in to the mesh and you can see the material. I can label this here. I'm just going to call this gold material. You see that it changed here. I can also change the text here, goldish material, and then it will update up here. And then if I wanted to, I could put a texture over that. That would be here. I could paint a texture, using some of the texture tools. I'm not gonna do any of that right now. I'm just drawing your attention to it. So yeah, there's the texture, there's the material. This is the actual mesh. You can see that there's a consistency of the icons all the way through that. If I did put a texture on here, if I open something or just generated a new one by clicking this plus, then this hierarchy over here would show that my gold ball, the body, if you want to call it that, because remember there's a limit to 300 bodies, and the body can be made up of multiple different components. The mesh, of course, is the most important one, but then also of importance is its material and texture. You say, well, Scott, if you can have 300 bodies but only 10 textures, how are you going to put textures on all 300? Well, you can reuse these things. If we look back into KJ's space, never have to jump up in here. You can see here the scratch is a pretty good example. That scratch, this one right here, it's probably the same one that's used over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So you use a texture more than once. So this no dogs texture is the same as this no dogs texture over here, or the this picture of the little kitty cat with the cloak and hood is the same picture as this one up here. So yeah, the textures are used more than once. So just by being creative in that way, like no entry, you'll need to do that once, even though it's placed in two different locations. You just create that texture once and then you use it in two different locations. So that's how you get around that. You've got 300 bodies, you've got 10 textures, but you maybe sample parts of it and use it in multiple different locations. Okay. Go back to select. Okay, I've named this. I've got my different collections. You can also name the different collections. So this is, let's just see what this is. Yeah, there's our cube. This is called Guide to Parcel Size. So no wonder it's hidden, but that's how big you can make your parcel. I'm going to call this, rename it, so I'm going to just double click on it and call this the cube, or how about mesh cube? That'll be more descriptive. Collapse, collapse, and gold ball, collapse. Okay. So I'm going to export this. Do that over here in the file, export, GLB. Okay. I'm going to click remember export settings. Just again, I'm dragging this over here. My cursor changes, so that tells me that I can grab it and move it. Okay, what do I want to include in my scene? I want to include everything that's visible. I could do it any number of ways. I could just select the things that I want, and then I would check this box, selected objects, renderable objects, active scene, custom properties. I mean, I can go through all those, but right now, just the things that are visible. I can control visibility by clicking on these eyeballs, and that's, most people know how to use the CMS in Photoshop. So the eyeball just, it affects its visibility. With the eyeball there, that means it's visible. That means it's going to be exported as a GLB. So it takes all of those components and packages them into GLTF, graphic library. Oh, gosh, I forget what the TF stands for. But the GLB, GLTF, those are your open source 3D object files that are pretty standard from one package to another. That's why Decentraland decided to use it. Decentraland is almost 100% open source stack, development stack, so that's why they chose that standard. Don't need to worry about that. This is something that I do want to point out. I want to make sure that this is selected, apply all modifiers, and I'm just going to hover over here. Excluding armatures to mesh objects. Warning, prevents exporting shape keys. So a modifier is, these are our modifiers, right? There's a whole list of things that I can perform on a mesh to get it to do things. I'm not going to cover that today. But there are ways to, you know, if I have a flat plane, to give it a thickness, or I want to I've given it a thickness. Now I want to make it appear to be water, so give it some randomization on the surface. I can do all that with my modifiers. And sometimes I forget to bake those in, so to speak. So by applying a modifier, it's like I'm preparing my recipe. I need to select this apply modifiers to make sure that I put it in the oven and that I bake my cake, because I don't want to dump a bunch of batter on the scene into Decentraland. I want it to be a baked cake. So this is going to help us bake our cake, right, is this apply modifiers. Material, yeah, we want to export that. We can use this to compress our textures. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but you've got pretty much everything you've got over here, right? So there's a mesh with modifiers, there's material, there's textures. There are tick boxes here, check boxes, that we are going to select on this side. But the most important ones are, how am I going to tell the computer what I want to export? That's here with the include button. I'm selecting visible objects, which I'm controlling with my visibility options here in my content management system, over here in the scene collection, and mesh, apply modifiers. Okay. Now I'm going to give it a name. This isn't just the mesh cube beta. This is the mesh cube, and I'm going to put AJ. That's my username, odd job. I'm just going to put 00.glb. I'm going to export GLTF, right? And again, if I zoom in here, oh, where is it? There it is. There's my cube and my sphere with my little environment texture, okay? All right. I'm going to minimize this. And I don't know if this is included in the PDF. I'll have to go back and check the PDF, but I think that's where it is. So there's something called Babylon.js. This is a sandbox. It's basically a WebGL, a web graphics library. It's just a way that JavaScript running in your browser can take 3D model files and render them. So remember how I said it takes the material, or when we exported the GLB, it takes the material information, it takes the textures, it like packages that all up into one file. So I can drop that file in this sandbox. I can just drag and drop it onto my browser, and it will render it out. This is a really fast way to preview your objects, your scenes, without having to bring it into Builder, without having to open up Visual Studio Code or get something like DCL Edit and preview it. So let me open up my Windows Explorer. Again, I have to remember where I saved this. I believe it is here. Okay. Right. So Mesh Cube AJ, odd job, that's me. I'm going to take this. I'm just going to drag it and drop it on here. So now it's loading. And there's the cube. All right. So it's going to show me my colliders. The sandbox doesn't have the specific coding of Decentraland to take something like a collider and render it as invisible as it's done here. Right? Again, we can see the effects of the collider, and that I can't get past. I can jump past it, right? Maybe I can. Yeah, there we go. But I can't see the colliders. Okay. So I can zoom in here. Okay, so different environment, different simulated world environment, and this is what I was talking about earlier. You just need to be able to just check it out, like see what it looks like. You can see the Babylon has a different environment. Skybox, as it were, to show you the reflection, but you can see the straight edges of the polygonal object. You know, if you look at that super closely, but it's yeah, it looks metallic mostly. There's our ramp to get inside. We can see the inside. Now, if we get close to the sphere, I want to actually go inside the sphere. Can I get inside the sphere? There we go. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. It doesn't have backface culling. It doesn't treat the inside of, so the sandbox, what I'm using right now, sandbox.babylonjs.com, it renders both sides of the sphere. So even though it's inside of it, you could still see it. So other 3D renderings environments will not give you that. The computer won't have the instructions to render it out, so it will appear invisible, just like the windows in KJ's box. It appears white on the outside, but inside they appear to be window panes. Huh. Okay. Next, I'm going to start up Visual Studio Code. All right. I'm going to open a folder. Let's go to 3D. Let's go to Mesh. Sample scene. Okay, open that. Don't want to save that. Okay. Okay. Creating my project. Here's my scene. Okay. Game.ts. So I'm just installing some dependencies. This right here where it says node modules. NPM, it stands for Node Package Manager. So I needed to install that so I have all of the libraries that I need in order to do things like DCL. Let's go back and look at the documentation. What's my basic cube spawner package? Go to SDK6. I can just run the scene. Open in browser. So this isn't going to be the cube. I haven't added my GLB to the scene just yet. And you can hear the fan ramp up on my workstation as soon as I start this. Okay, so this is just the default scene, but this is Decentraland running on my local system. If I look up here, it says local host, right? Local preview. If I want to, I can come in here and change some settings. Excuse me. Randomize my character. Don't like having beard.
Whoa.
Okay. So now I'm going to go to the docs in Decentraland. I'm going to click on content creators, right? So they're in a state of transition right now where they're moving from SDK6 to SDK7. I'm here in SDK6. I'm going to go here to meshes. Right. A lot of this information is going to be the same. So anything that if anybody wants to dive into this, that you're going to learn about SDK6 will apply to SDK7. But let's just take a little quick look at the 3D modeling component. Yeah, so all 3D models must be in the GLTF format. There we go, transmission. So GL stands for graphics library, TF stands for transmission format. Version of that is GLB, which is, even if you're not using Blender, you're using, say, 3D Studio Max or Cinema 4D, Lightwave, Maya, whatever it is that you're using, it needs to be in the GLB format, because that is what I will take here in, yeah, we can get rid of that. I will take and drop in here in the in Visual Studio Code to add to your scene. So to export your GLB from Blender, from 3D Studio Max, from Maya, these are the steps, Unity, SketchUp, so on and so forth. Talking about the Babylon preview, why they use the GLTF format, basically explaining the open source stack, optimizing it. So some of the stuff that I've already gone through. Oh, excuse me. I don't normally get up this early. But whatever I need to do for the cause. Okay, I think what I want to do is go to this SDK6 scenes. Entities and components. This is what I want. Okay. I'm going to add an entity, also known as a body. I'm looking for the bit of code that uses the GLB, because I need to make a constant entity model. I'm first and foremost an artist. And I've only recently begun to learn this programming component, so I don't use it every day, so I can't recall it at will in the deep recesses of my mind, so I have to come and just copy pasta. Here we go. If your entity uses a complex 3D model or texture, it might take the scene. Okay, well, yeah. Well, that's nice to see that it's been updated recently. There. It didn't show me that. Let's go back to where I was. I think this is where I need to be. So constant box equals new entity, box, add component, new transform. I may just have to open up one of my older scenes because I'm not finding it. I mean, these are general rules, but there's nothing in here that like talks about adding a model. Okay. Let's go here. I'm going to go to sample scene, and I'm going to create a directory, a folder, and I'm going to call it models. Okay. I'm going to go up a level here. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to rename this. just going to call it AJ. And then I'm going to copy it, go into my sample scene that I just created. I'm going to put it here into models. Paste, copy, pasta. All right. Now, I'm going to go to a place that I know I have there. I'll go into CVD. Was that even where I went? There we go. Okay. This is what I was looking for. And I only need parts of this. Don't need the colliders. Don't need that. I don't need the sliding shelf. It's really, this is what I need right here. Need to make constant the scene entity. Yeah, let's grab this. All this right here. Okay. So I'm going to go back here, open folder. Oh, sample scene. There we go. src gain.ts. Get rid of that. Paste that in. This isn't Argent's build that we're going to be using. This is odd jobs mesh test. Okay. And we don't need this bit right here because we don't have the shelf is just something from a scene for a previous build, and I had it moving in and out. I don't need that, so. But what I do need is I do want things like the HUD, which stands for Heads Up Display. I don't think I need the transform component, so I'm just gonna comment that out, meaning that I can read it, but the computer can't read it. I don't need the images. I'm going to delete that. Don't need this. Don't need this. I mean, if you want an auto dance area in your scene, we could certainly go over that, but I don't think we need that. So making sure I have my dependencies set up. Well, I gotta go back and read how I can import that, so I'll do this later. So I'll comment this out. But I do know, so the HUD, HUD, it's a heads-up display. It enables me to, inside my local preview of, oh dear. I'm dropping from a long way. I'm gonna make it. There we go. Oh wow. Okay. So for my local view of Decentraland, the HUD just enables me to move things around. So like if I wanted to grab this bush, it gives me a tool inside here to be able to take it and move it, to then take the coordinate information and enter it back in to Visual Studio Code, so that why did I drop in so far? I'm just very curious about that. What was my... Yeah, that's weird. Okay. Okay. Well, I want to make some declarations in here so I can actually bring in the mesh box, and I'm going to put it right here. This is going to be where I link to it. Now I did create a models directory. If I call up my scene viewer right here, let's go back to mesh, right, and our sample scene models, and it's just called aj00.glb, right? So if I rename this capital A, capital J, 00, and save that, well, it should be here. I don't know why I'm at 500, 500. Goodness, what is going on? I want to go back to 00, because that's where, if I look at my scene, that's where my base is. That's where my home base is. That's where I put all my stuff. So let's reload. And if I did this correctly, our box should be there. So this is coming from the decentraland.org website, but that's not what I want. What I want is this. And it's not there. Oh, well, let's get rid of this, because I haven't loaded this yet. I mean, this isn't super important, but I don't want to call it metal box. I want to call it AJ box. Box. Okay. I don't need all this special component transforms. I just need 0, 0, 0. So hopefully this can fix it. And I shouldn't have to refresh. It should, yeah, okay, there it is. It's totally in the wrong place. Okay, so if I had the HUD, I could do a live positioning, but I don't. So I'm just gonna eyeball it. Okay, so well, look at this here. I'm gonna go over to the code. It's got the red box around it because it's outside of this magical square right here. It has to be inside that, and as you can see, it is outside of that. So I'm gonna just move it over, place it in the middle of that magical square, and then the red box will go away. So I need to X, Y, and Z. So in Decentraland, Y is up. So it's like this is X here along the bottom of my screen. This is Y up, and then back in space or into my screen is Z. So I need to go over in X, negative, like we'll try -1. There is a tool that makes this easier. I just forgot how to install it. That's why I commented it out up here. So if I could remember how to do that, this would be easier, but I can't. So we're going to do it this way. So we're just going to punch in some numbers and see what happens. -1. Yeah, let's get over here. Yeah, it is. Well, let's see if we can just climb. Oh, our colliders aren't even working. Well, that's frustrating, but you can see up inside there is our sphere. It's the whole point of this exercise. Let me go into settings. Let me turn on my control of the skybox, change it to daytime so you can actually see. There we go. You can see the reflectivity a little bit from this bottom vantage point. Well, first things first. Let's get this put in the right place. So it needs to go in, it needs to go over. Let's do -8. So I'm putting in a number. From what I can see, it's the center of this object is placed like right on the 0, 0, just on like one of the corners. So I think I need to go over -8 in X and in -8 in Z. That's just going to be my guess. And let's see if it refreshes. No, it went absolutely the wrong way. So if you remember, it was like, it was a little bit in this corner over here, and now it's completely out. So let's try, instead of -8, let's try +8. Because each parcel is 16 meters by 16 meters in X and Z, so that's why I chose 8, because if it was like, halfway in, halfway out in the corner, so half of 16 is 8. Hey, there we go. Looks like it's, I don't see a red box around it. It looks like it's directly in the 16 by 16 parcel. That might be out of bounds a little bit. I don't know why. If it is, there's no red box around it. Okay. Let's see. I'm already at 1 hour 45. I'm almost at 2 hours at doing this. So this isn't a very long video. But hopefully there is some useful information in this. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'll do another one of these. We'll talk about. Hopefully by then I'll have the colliders fixed. But we'll talk about textures next time. I've already had an artist come to me asking questions about video. We'll definitely cover that in the next AMA. But hopefully this has given you some insight. I've had an artist ask me, why is it so difficult to get things done where the other tools make it easy? And the answer that I have is that Decentraland is open sourced, right? It's got tools that are accessible to everybody. So in order to have things that make it easy, somebody has to build those tools, and those tools are being built as we speak. So it's more like a Swiss Army knife where you can do multiple things with Decentraland. if you know how. So the people that do know how are making the tools to do different things. Like there's a programmer who's making a 2D version of Decentraland. So instead of running around in 3 dimensions, it's a retro 2D, kind of like a Super NES system. If you wanted to, have like a black and white 2D noir rendering of Decentraland, you can, because it's open source and anybody can access that. So because it's all built and freely open and available to everybody, that creates a situation where it's very accessible, but it requires people to create the tools so that people can access those, and those tools are being created. It's taking some time. So to assemble it, that's why we're having the artists focus only on the models, the animation, the audio, the video, and I and people that are more knowledgeable than I. The developers are going to be assembling this stuff for you. So hope this has been helpful. We'll be scheduling other AMAs. Look for those in the events section of the Community Building Decentraland. And yeah, have a great day. We'll talk to you guys later.